Thanks for coming. Yeah, thanks for coming, everyone. Some of you have seen this version before, so thank you. 50% of the people here are filming. And thanks, Kyle, for coming.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah.
Pleasure.
Yeah, we'll get into deeper introductions soon, but yeah, I just want to set this up. Combine presents Labnotes. Yeah, this one's all about how to do graffiti. And as I ask at the beginning of every Labnotes, will you host a Labnotes in the future? That is my question. Mark, I know you will. Eric, will you? Maybe? Yeah, we want everyone to help doing these in the future. So when you're watching this or enjoying, hopefully you'll think, oh shit, is there anything I could actually run in the future, maybe in February, March, to teach a skill or just show someone a new layer of creativity. And then the other thing, before we even get into it, at the end of this, we're going to do a workshop where everyone gets to do a tag or do a graffiti piece. But it's always so hard in the moment to think, what word am I going to write? So right now, start thinking, what word am I going to write?
What's your alias? What's your street name?
Yes. And it could be a nickname, it could be a nephew or niece's name, or just some word you like to say.
Mark with a C. You're a K, right? Yeah.
We got 2 Ks here. And then, yeah, ask any questions. It's way more interesting when you ask something real. And it could be a hard-hitting question about our graffiti careers, or, I don't know, what would people ask? About
next question.
Who's better? Yeah, the way we do graffiti together is somehow interesting, or our histories. One of us has been arrested. That's interesting.
Ooh.
But yeah, that's it. So then what's up today? Can you guys all see? So we'll start with an introduction about who we are. Why are we teaching this? Then we'll look at the basics and the history of graffiti, just a little foundation. Then we're going to talk about graffiti thinking and how you can apply graffiti, a graffiti mindset to like your everyday life or your careers. Then Kyle's going to take us through the elements and principles of graffiti art. And then finally, we're going to do a little workshop. We're all going to do some graffiti. And one thing I'm nervous about, which I haven't told you about, is in the Combine, there's a bunch, in the extended Combine universe, there's a lot of like really good graffiti writers. I'm afraid if they watch this, they're going to be like, these guys are jokes. Like that mural out there was done by 3 of Canada's best graffiti writers. So
I'm nervous about all of it. Everything.
So if you're watching, come do your own how to do graffiti. Please, 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 please. Yeah. Undershirt.
Or your duration.
Yes. Yeah, calling an undershirt felt wrong.
I ruined it.
Okay, before we get into it, any questions? Anyone? No. Smiley nods? No. Any regrets? Okay, Max and Kyle.
That's us.
Yeah, we've been doing graffiti for 25 years almost now. One thing that's funny about this, we've given this talk before, and I think part of it sounds very romantic or like really cool. Graffiti's cool. The reality is, this is a great meme that's like, graffiti sounds really cool and badass, but it is not. Like we spend so much time just like, Kyle and I just sitting in like the bushes in a train yard or in your basement drawing and like, not cool.
Monty Burns and Smithers, just hanging out in the darkness.
And Kyle's what's your job title?
UX manager.
UX manager at Shopify. Do people know you do graffiti there?
Yes, but not all the details.
Do they think it's cool?
Yes. They think it's cool because I've done it for some interesting people.
Okay.
Yes. But otherwise, maybe not.
Interesting.
Hard to tell.
Yeah, I think these days, like most of my graffiti is done like this, with literally my daughter just doing graffiti on stickers. Do you do paint with your kids? You have 2 daughters?
I have 2 daughters, and for the record, you did that.
No, but I'm not saying
sick.
I'm not saying she did the work. I'm saying that's how, when I do graffiti, is when my daughter and I are doing art.
It's true. Actually, I can see her doing the outline. She did do that. Sorry.
bottom,
I,
yeah.
I apologize to you and your daughter. I do it with my daughters a little bit, yeah, but they're terrible. Yeah.
This is Kyle and I, a mural we did 3 years ago? I don't know, 2 years ago? Nobody knows.
Yeah, something like that.
And yeah, Kyle's on the left. He wrote Too Old. I wrote For This, but we interchange. We try to collaborate the whole time and kind of confuse people.
We finish each other's sentence.
Spray paints? Yeah. Finish each other's spray paints. Yeah, so that's Max, Kyle. There's some other examples here. That's a train we did, which is cool. There's these little cutout canvases there that we each have framed in our house. Mine's on my wall. Yours is on a wall?
Hiding in the basement.
Hiding in the basement.
Wife not approved.
And then here's a bunch of ones. There's like fun stories for all these. Well, you guys can't see, but like, so that's Kyle and I and our buddy Dime. That's me in Australia. Kyle on a train there that was done near like St. Clair and Bathurst area. Yeah, some more trains. That's me beside, side busting is called when you go beside someone who's really good that you're not friends with, but that you want to be like, oh, I'm beside them. And that's me side busting, who I think is maybe the best graffiti writer in the world, or one of them, Soffles. Would you agree?
Up there.
What else do we have here? Kyle did a mural for a Tribe Called Quest.
Yes.
That's pretty cool. Yep. Me, went to this graffiti festival in Switzerland where there was 60 writers. There was the massive wall, and I just like snuck in. I wasn't supposed to be there, but I just did it.
And you did the world's smallest piece.
I did it so small, like this. Yeah, so
Compared
small.
to the guy below you.
Yeah, this is still there. That was from 15 years ago. If that's at College and what's the street near Clinton? College and
Manning, isn't it?
College and Manning.
Ish.
That's still there. If you want to check it out. That one's right behind the Drake Hotel, but it's not there anymore. And what else do we have? Some join-ups. These are, I spent a year in Australia. These are all with different Australian and German people. These are pretty fun. So that's me, and that's me. And then what else is the last one? So
Classics.
Yeah, these are old, but we did this for the Raptors. This is Edge 102.1, which was funny because the first time we did it, we wrote 102.1. No,
that was the first one.
that was the first one. We did it. They were like, "That's sick," except our name is 102.1 The Edge, so we had to redo it.
Yeah. I don't think that was our fault. I think they fucked up and then they tried to blame us. Either way, they didn't pay us again, so.
I felt dumb. Come on in, John. Old One Method office on King Street, which Kyle and I did. How many? There was like 37 different ones.
Yeah.
And then that's for a Justin Bieber album. And we wrote, "Life is worth living," but someone came up to Kyle and said, what was
No, it was on Instagram. It was one of the comments.
What'd they say?
Life is warm lasagna.
People think it says
Which
life is warm lasagna.
It's true.
Yeah.
So true.
Okay, basics and any questions about us and our connection to graffiti? No.
Any questions about warm lasagna? Okay.
Okay, so the history. This is like going way back. You could argue that the first art ever found, 40,000 BC, was kind of graffiti art because the first art was found was in a public space. It was in a cave where someone didn't live, and it was actually, they sprayed pigment. Guy put his hand up, sprayed pigment, like mud basically, hand stencils. So it's kind of graffiti. And then in 100 BC, Romans started doing ads, like out in these public markets, that people would actually do kind of artwork in this public space, kind of graffiti-esque. Then in early 1900s, on the trains, hobos started doing monikers, like leaving their marks on trains. 1940s, Kilroy was here, so again, Americans were traveling the world fighting in wars, and they would leave their mark. And then in 1949, spray can was amended. So really that's where, to us, like modern, I don't know why you laughing.
It's like 2,000 years. Yeah.
Very simple. Nothing else happened either. That was it.
That was terrible, terrible, terrible 2,000 years for graffiti, yeah.
This was a boring period.
It's like,
In between here.
well, basically
Reflected us for everyone.
40,000 years. Yeah, this is not inclusive, not a complete list, and we're not really concerned with this stuff. We're more like once the spray can got invented, that's when we get concerned.
But let's keep going.
Yeah. Yeah. So this stuff's really small, so I don't know if you can see it, but basically in 1967 was when the first time people started doing tags that we would call now modern graffiti. Started in Philadelphia and New York. Then in 1971, this guy Tacky 183 was a delivery boy in New York, and he would go all around New York delivering stuff, and he just wrote his name, Tacky 183, everywhere, on subways, on buses, on mailboxes, and then the New York Times wrote an article about him. Like, who is this person that writes their name everywhere? And it's just really simply drawn, and that article then like blew up. So many people saw that, so many kids saw that, and were like, I want to do that, I want to be famous. And so that was actually a real pivotal moment. There's a documentary on him, I think you can watch for free on YouTube. That was pretty interesting. Then mid-70s, people started doing graffiti on the subways in New York. And that is where you've probably seen photos of that. That's like the classic, real shift into like the classic era of graffiti. 1981, Blondie had a famous song, like #1 song on MTV. And there's a graffiti writer in it, Dondi. I think it's Dondi?
Yep.
What do you?
I'm going to say yes.
Okay. He was doing graffiti in it. That was pretty big. 82 is like Basquiat and Keith Haring became like pretty famous, and were starting to put their work in galleries. And then 1983, this movie came out called Style Wars, which was a documentary on graffiti in New York, largely on the subways. And again, that blew up. And then there was a book in 1984 about subway art graffiti that got published around the world. And graffiti from that point became global. Like those two things, that movie in 83 and that book in 84, turned it into like this actual global movement. 90s, people started doing a lot more subways all around the world. Banksy started showing up in the late 90s. Again, he wasn't that popular yet, but that's when his work started getting some notoriety. We fit right here on this list, Max and Kyle.
That's when we were born, 95.
1995, we started to do graffiti in Kyle's basement. It's pretty funny. 2008, there was the Hope poster by Obey. That became like Obama's Hope poster. That was like a globally recognized graffiti-based image. And then 2010, anyone see Exit Through the Gift Shop, Banksy's video? Yes, yes, yes. So that became pretty big. I can't remember if it got an Oscar nomination or not. I think it did for something. So that was pretty big. And then, yeah, in 2019, Banksy sells painting for like $1 million to Brad Pitt or something. The thing I added here that I don't think was there last time was around 2008, 2010, anti-style graffiti became a thing, and we just came out, Combine just released a new magazine, and there's an article in it all about anti-style graffiti. So that was something we dove deep into. Kyle's quoted in that. I wrote it, so check it out, please, please, please. But then, so that's the history. Anyone miss anything? Any questions?
You technically skipped 2017 layered billboard.
Yes.
Don't know if it's that relevant.
It's not that relevant. It comes up later in the presentation. Good point. But let's look at the basics. The first thing is tags. And I mean, tags, if you go in our bathroom, it's just covered in tags. And that's really like a stylized signature. It's the most basic form of graffiti, the rawest form of graffiti. And Kyle and I are terrible at them.
Yeah, really bad. Really bad.
So we're not going to, at the end of this, we're going to teach you how to do more of a piece, a masterpiece, which is the last thing on this list. But tags are very cool, and there's some great tags in our bathroom, so check those out. One level up in fidelity is throw up. So some people call these bubble letters or fill-ins, but I would call it a throw up usually. And these are, again, a little more stylized, but still quick. The object here is to be able to do this pretty quickly in a legal scenario. Let me know if I'm missing anything.
No.
Then one level up for fidelity is a piece. So this is short for masterpiece. You're taking more time. Usually you have permission to do this, but not always. And often there's like an elaborate color scheme and a little more thought and time put into it. And then finally you have productions, which is often a number of pieces put together, unified in some way, and sometimes with characters. So in this case, who do we have? Tones, Sneak, and Bates. did a production, so all the same style pieces, same colors, and then there's characters in between, look like they're tones.
Mm-hmm. I think so.
Characters, and then they each have like these, I mean, what are these? I don't even know what the posters are. Are they spray cans?
Yeah, I think spray can labels.
Spray can labels. So there's a big production, and those are the 4.
And this is all the same guy.
Oh yeah, so this is all the same guy, Bates, and Bates, doing the different fidelities, so tags, throw-ups, pieces, and productions. So yeah, those are the basics. Then we shift into like how, so translating graffiti into, like how can you translate graffiti thinking into your day-to-day life, your jobs, your careers, or just, how you, sometimes parenting or whatever it might be. And this is something that I don't know for you, is this a big thing for you? Like for me, I think it's huge as to how it's shaped my career. Like me applying some graffiti principles, not usually consciously, but subconsciously. Is that big for you or not big?
I try and do it consciously because I feel like it's not like a part of like my fabric, but I'm like, I need to be more.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
That's interesting. Yeah, so for me, I've almost deconstructed it backwards because I'll listen to like these self-help books or like how to be a better manager or how to, whatever. That's a terrible title for a book.
These are the things that Max reads.
Yeah, but I'll read these books that are like how to think in a certain way, and I'll be like, oh shit, I do a version of that, or one method does a version of that, and I'll sometimes trace it back to these sort of graffiti origins. So 4 or 5 slides on how you can apply graffiti thinking to your life and your job. Now, there's explicit versions of it, like in advertising a couple of years ago, 2017, there was this billboard not far from here that was like a layered billboard and it had graffiti on it. So you can see like very explicitly how graffiti thinking can intersect with advertising. I also saw this a few months ago, which is like the TTC could soon start showing ads inside subway tunnels. I could see how you're going through the tunnel and there's graffiti on the wall and some person was like, oh shit, we should be using that space. So that's a more explicit way, but for me it's more about in more implicit ways that I want to talk about. So design thinking, on a separate tangent, is it's all about applying a designer mindset to non-design challenges. And it's like very trendy to talk about design thinking now. John, do you use design thinking in life?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I try.
Sorry, consciously or you just naturally?
I think I've thought of things afterwards and like, oh, I was sort of design thinking
Right.
principles applied to problem solving something.
Nice.
Yeah.
And have you seen the trend of more people like outside of
Yeah, it's
our world?
a hot thing.
Yeah. Yeah, where I see a lot more even like clients we talk to now talk about design thinking, and that's great. And so looking backwards, there's design thinking, there's entrepreneurial thinking, and then there's pirate thinking.
Of course, there's pirate thinking. We all know it.
Yeah. So yeah, I read this book that was all about pirate thinking, which was just, and it made me really think, oh shit, like graffiti thinking should be its own thing. So design thinking is about being beautiful and logical, and then entrepreneurial thinking is about being new and viable, and then pirate thinking is really about unruly, unconcerned with what's out there, and graffiti thinking kind of taps into all these things. So I think there's a lot of merit to it, and broke down into 6 key principles that I think we could all apply to our lives and jobs. I don't know if you had a chance to think about this today, did you? A little bit? TBD.
Yes. Been thinking hard.
Okay. So the first one is like, fuck the rules. And that's such an obvious one. I don't think we need to go too deep into that, but it's just so often in life there are rules and you can break them and it just doesn't matter. Like for example, in advertising, sometimes there'll be a pitch or an RFP and they'll be like, you have to do this. You have to submit in this format. If you submit in a different format, like very rarely are they like, sorry, this is invalid. It's like you can just sometimes just totally break the rules and no one cares. Or award shows sometimes will be like, oh, your submission video has to be 2 minutes. If your video is like 2 minutes and 9 seconds, if you paid them the money for the entry, are they gonna say, no, sorry, here's your money back? No, like it's gonna be fine. So those are just small ways, but often if you think about it, you're like, do I need to follow these rules? Some rules, yes, but other rules, definitely not. Next one is go over anything. And I think graffiti is so clear that like the people who go over shit that you never thought of get so much love. And you see it and you're like, why didn't I think of that? So this crew, One Up crew, does crazy, crazy stuff. If you look at them on YouTube, absolutely mind-blowing. So they cover this boat, and there's such a beautiful video documenting it. Like, that's huge. They've also done like a coral reef where they actually did a mural on a coral reef and then used it to raise money to help support coral reefs. Some other examples are, if you've been to New York, that's, what is that? Some museum. Modern
Some
art?
kind of
Something.
modern contemporary museum.
So some guy did graffiti up there, and again, it's like, who thought of it? It's actually this metal, it's hard to tell, it's like this metal weird surface. It's not a wall. And this guy did a piece there, and then a famous one is seen, this was in the 80s, he did a mural on the Hollywood sign and like blew people's minds. Sabre, there's a guy sitting right there, you can see. He did this river, that was in the 90s, and this was right when you'd fly into LAX. So everyone flying into LAX would see this and be like, holy shit, like, I never thought of doing a mural on this angle because you can walk on it. But he did this massive one. And then, so if you translate this to like advertising or other industries, like some of my favorite pieces, or projects that I've worked on was like, we did this Google Streetwear view where we did an ad campaign inside Google Streetwear, we hacked it. Or Canadian Apparel where we did an ad campaign was using this existing space and hacking the space. Or receipts was, we used Uber Eats in a way that people hadn't used it. So it's like just putting your message in spaces that either it's not supposed to go or no one had ever thought of cramming their message there is very graffiti and I think very effective. Anything to add?
I think that creativity in general, like, it needs confines, like you need rules, otherwise you're not being creative because you're not solving a problem, right? So it all sort of ties back to these kinds of things, but it's important to know the rules, work with them when necessary and all that, but then strategically break them.
Gotcha. Yeah, good point. Graffiti thinking, I think a lot of graffiti writers are in crews. And I think some of the best graffiti writers are in multiple crews, and they actually work with different people, and I think that helps you get more creative and just grow your career, your creativity in all different ways. So I definitely feel it here, where if you just work with the people you normally work with, it's harder to, I think, branch out and sort of do different things. So you have to like put yourself out there and go hang out with different groups, do different types of work, and that's definitely something that. Yeah, I felt like you and me had we were down with different graffiti crews, and we were like outsiders. People thought we were, we were like the cool people, but we were like friendly with different people, and I think that helped. In this example here is a local guy who's in, you can see 3 different crews at the top, DOH or Doe Crew, BA, and LSD. So he rolls with 3 different crews, and they all have very different styles. This next one is, yeah, bite, disguise. So biting in graffiti is definitely like a no-no. Like you don't want to bite someone. Like this example on the screen is 2 different people, but this guy like totally ripped off the person on the left. It's very blown out. But at the same time, like borrowing influence and disguising as your own is so, yeah, do you do that at your work? Do you like bite or find influence and twist to make it your own?
I steal everything. Okay. Absolutely everything. But honestly, like, I think basically everything's been done anyway, so we're all just doing slight variations of things that already exist, but I think it's very important to bite or steal style, maybe not when you're doing it on a certain platform or scale, but like in order to learn. Mm-hmm. So like I used to, as you know, like I used to absolutely copy this guy Case and just take off the top of his C's, because my graffiti name is Lace, and it taught me so much. I was like, it taught me, his pieces were good, and I was like, why are his pieces good? By biting and stealing, I was like, oh, that's how he bends his A, or that's how he does that with his S, and then I can do my own variation on that. But I wouldn't be good if I was trying to trial and error my way to get there. It would have taken me years longer.
Yeah, totally. And I mean, I still do this to this day. There's an example here. This is, the first video I'll play is Utah and Ether. They're like they're like Bonnie and Clyde. They're 2 of the most famous graffiti writers of all time. and they released a video that I loved so much, and then we were doing an internal video for a wine company, and I may have borrowed, oh, you can't hear shit. So yeah, that's Utah and Ether's video. Oh, I can't, I was gonna play both of them. Shit. Okay, let me.
Started.
Yeah, I know, I wanna, sorry about that, but I do wanna play this so you can see. Why? Technical difficulties here. We'll fix this in post. It's like the exact same song, exact same editing style, and I remember showing it internally here, and people were like, "This is amazing." I was like, "Yeah, I borrowed it from someone else."
Today is not about where we came from.
Max, take full credit.
Today is about where we're going.
So much.
Today.
This is the part where it's like, it was time to be here. Yeah.
And tomorrow begins.
Was that worth the wait? I don't know.
Hell of a
Yeah.
bite.
I mean, even just using the same Florence and the Machine song is like already, you're just stealing influence there. Two more notes, I think. One is sketch. Like, graffiti's all about sketching. I mean, sure, lots of art forms are, but graffiti, you sketch, and you get to the right point. I do this every day still. I use, like in Keynote, there's 5 hidden slides there. So I'll do like, the first slide is like this rough version of what I think I want the slide to say. And I do it really quick, and then I I copy and paste it. Here's another one, and I tighten it up. And it takes me a long time to sometimes get down to like 3 key points with 4 or 5 words. That took a long time to get there. Do you do any like sketching at work? I guess you're doing design, so.
Absolutely, but I don't know why this came to me. It has nothing to do with my work or graffiti, but it's like comedians is like the perfect, I feel like, example of like just constantly trimming the fat. Like they make it look like it's just like off the cuff sort of chatter that's hilarious on stage, but they've worked so hard, and it was probably, double the length. And they just like trim, redo it until it's like a tight 5, as they say.
So true. And then the last note here is style usually wins. So it's just crazy that in graffiti, someone can do like so much volume and just be all different countries or all different cities. But like someone who just has sick style, and even if they just have one color, or one can, they just have like really sick style, they're the person you're gonna remember, they're the person that's gonna kill it and win. And I think the same happens in at least in advertising and design agencies. It's like sometimes someone, even in like a pitch or working on a project, and you're even internally just throwing out ideas, it's like the person who sometimes has just the right style can just come out on top. And I sometimes forget that, so this note's mostly for myself, of like, no, but this, we had all right the rationale, we had all the right slides, we answered the question or the brief perfectly, and then someone comes in and doesn't do any of that, but just has the right style. And I'm like, oh shit, yeah, they win. They got it. And I don't know. When we talked about this, you also talked about the idea of like execution.
Yeah, like ideas or strategy, like whether you're in a meeting and you're coming up with that big like direction or strategy, and it's all like it means nothing. It's like it has no value until you execute, and when you execute, it's all that matters. Like an idea is completely worthless unless you absolutely nail the execution, and that's style basically.
Right, yeah, totally, yeah, it's so true. Yeah, I've heard that stat of like ideas 10%, execution 90%, and if you translate it in graffiti, to me I look at it and it's like, just like how sick are their letters, or how much style do they have?
Yeah, you could find the best spot, the best rooftop or whatever, but if you don't like rock it and burn it, then...
Yeah, and this is a Toronto writer who I absolutely love their style, Max Ice. Okay, so yeah, those are 6 different graffiti thinking principles that I apply to my day-to-day life. Anything missed there? No?
Nailed it.
So then do you want to talk, we got like 5 more minutes, then we'll get into the workshop here. So the elements and principles of graffiti art.
So, first things first, it's no different than any art form, right? Like there's a lot of people that have strong opinions about graffiti, you know, right and wrong, but when it comes down to it, if you're critiquing it as an art, you're trying to critique the style or whatever, it comes down to the same elements and principles that we critique any art form by. Go to the next one. So elements, like this is like art theory 101, but line, shape, form, texture, space, color, value. I don't know, there's probably more. I feel like these have changed and evolved. But these are basically like the tools that any artist has to work with, right? These are like the most basic elements that they have to create whatever they're going to create. And then the principles, which is on the next one, are basically what they create and like the composition and how they use those tools to bring whatever their idea is to life. And you could use these elements and principles to judge any art form in the world, and graffiti is really no different. The only difference is that people do it illegally without permission, and therefore it gets a lot of hate. But in the end, it's just art.
So yeah.
Where to begin on this? I feel like this begins heavy. This is very like unconventional graffiti, but this is a local Toronto writer. And as you can see, like you probably haven't come across graffiti like this very much in the past, but it obviously looks like smoke or some kind of like gas. It's all done with spray paint. Looks like probably all done with just 2 colors. And you know, to anyone walking by, they just kind of see like interesting art. They probably wouldn't even think this is graffiti. But I think on the next slide we can break down what it actually says, and it says bacon. Maybe go back a slide and see if you can like almost catch it. So yeah, there's a B there, an A, C, O, N. The N, maybe it's just the angle of the photo, might be the hardest to sort of spot, but you can kind of see the C and the rest of the letters now that you know. But it you know, kind of comes back to that debate of like if it's art or not. And this, we know this is graffiti because we know the person who did it, and we know the tools that they used to do it. But to someone else, it might not be graffiti, but it's really all the same. It's just art. This also says bacon. I don't know if we even have it overlaid on the next slide. No, we don't, but this is the same guy. So as you can see, he's used the elements in like a crazy different way. Lots of, you know, relying on line here and shape, whereas in the last one, he was, you know, you could argue that was like gas, or form, sorry, because it kind of looked like it was a gas and 3-dimensional. But same guy, also says bacon, completely different style, but certainly art.
2 more bacons here.
Yeah, I was gonna say, this you're probably more used to, graffiti-wise. It looks more like traditional lettering. Same thing though, B-A-C-O-N. And has his dog been in every single one? Maybe.
3 out of 4.
How's that dog doing all this graffiti?
Just an incredibly talented dog.
Yeah.
I don't know what the breed is. It's magic. But yeah, this is more sort of what when most people do graffiti or think of graffiti, this is kind of this is like exceptional graffiti, but this is generally the traditional form. So there's always, you know, letters, and then they have an outline, and then they have some kind of shadow or third dimension to give it some form. Same guy, same dog. Incredible. Also says bacon. There's some clouds, there's some lightning, a little bit more cartoony. Very cool.
Okay, new writer.
New writer. Does anyone want to guess what this says? Quick.
Or any letters.
Or yeah, any single letter.
We got a D, no S's.
No U.
There's an I in there. Yep. D blank I blank. I mean, the last letter is impossible.
The last letter.
A-I?
Yes. D-A-I, and the last letter is an M, but that's impossible to write. So this is a German guy.
A German Shepherd did this, and
You nailed it though.
pretty incredible stuff. But obviously, yeah, like heavy on the form and movement and just pretty incredible stuff. This is classic 1980 by legend in New York, Dondi. This is, again, probably what we're all used to, more traditional lettering, large scale, pretty simple, but added some characters in on that's, of course, on a subway. One of our personal favorites, Gesser, or potentially Jesser. I don't think we've ever gotten to the bottom of that debate, but Gesser. I think we have a few from him. Maybe next
Yeah.
one's, yeah. Oh, this is like, I was gonna say, let's cut that out though. These two, Jess and Chem, are like what we aspired to be, but weren't good enough or dedicated enough to be. But these two guys, they always, or at least they used to always do share styles and color schemes, and they would do like a production with a, some kind of theme in the background. And yeah, there's some help for you to read it. Jess and Chems. This is a local writer, Quest. Pretty wild.
Yeah, very. It's hard to read those.
When he
letters.
goes simple, it's still hard to read. And then probably one of my personal favorites. This is Mad C. Where's she from? She's from like
Germany.
Copenhagen.
I thought Germany.
I don't know. Anyway, like using the most basic elements of like basically just line. Obviously, there's a splash of like pink and red there, but these are just like a few lines, and yet the letters are just like so well structured. It says Mad C, so there's I don't know if we have an outline, but M up there on its side, and then you can probably see the A, D, and the C is above the D. But like so just like bare bones, but that's like the hardest thing to do, of course. Like as few lines as possible, but have like that flow and style is just incredible.
And this is her. She did a massive mural.
Oh, look at that pan.
Yeah, it's kind of.
My word, this is Presentation 101 book in action.
All by herself, 700 meters. Like she would be like that tall on it. It took her, I think, half,
And there's
half
just
a year.
so many pieces.
Yeah.
Even this like little bomb throw up over here, that one up there,
A little on the
tiny ones on the
rooftops.
rooftops, incredible. Anyway, she's
Another
insane.
one by her.
Crazy.
And then this is. Anyone want to guess what this says? Any letters you want to guess? Yep. 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 You nailed it. You missed one sneaky L in there, which is hidden. So that's Soffles from Australia. Also, crazy videos on YouTube if you want to check out.
What's the guy Max side busted?
Yep, big time. Big time. Sumi, Scott Sumi, he's a Vancouver writer. Still active? I don't know.
I think he just does like paintings
Real
now,
art.
but I don't know, he's probably still painting.
Okay, and then another one of our favorites.
So good. This, I'll just say, this somehow says totem, and he like kind of came up with this where like putting characters into each letter basically. So I don't know. There's dude over here. I don't think dude over here. There's some a money bag. I don't know what that is. Doesn't know. I'm not going to describe it. You get it.
No,
It's crazy though.
sick.
Totem.
And then totem on fire,
Crazy.
and then whatever this is.
Also totem.
And then Utah and Ether, the video that I borrowed from liberally. And then last one, vibes. So
Yep.
that brings us to the workshop.